She needs to see this, how difficult it is for you to. Hush. Aiden.
Alright,
Hush.
picture this. You are a woman in America in the 1820s. You can't vote, and you're only able to cook and clean in your household, and everything that you earn is given directly to the man of the house. Could any of you live like this? Me either. Hey everyone, I'm Marley Clarkson, and I'm a woman in America today that would someday like to be a doctor. In today's era, it is a lot easier for a woman to move up in society, but this was not the case 200 years ago. So today, I'm going to tell you about a woman, Elizabeth Blackwell, who was able to become the first female doctor. I will walk you through her life by first touching base on her youth and how she grew up. Then secondly, we'll talk about the obstacles she faced in school. And then lastly, we will conclude on the achievement she was able to make before she passed away. Born on February 3rd of 1821 in England, Elizabeth grew up in a family that was all about making societal changes. She grew up in a family that was made up of people in the anti-slavery movement, those involved in women's suffrage and women's rights, and then also her sister was the first female minister in a mainly Protestant denomination. With her growing up in a time of such big changes being made, it makes sense that she would want to do the same in her life. When her family became penniless after they moved to Cincinnati in the 1830s, her and the women of her family, they all became teachers, which was normal for women at the time. And as she continued working, she began to notice the inequality in the work profession. This influenced her to go into a profession with medicine, and then especially influenced her when one of her good friends got sick and was tended to by a male physician, but said that it would have been better and smoother and she would have got better a lot faster if she was treated by a female physician. This only drove Blackwell's curiosity even more to be a doctor. Although she was motivated enough to become a doctor, she had several obstacles standing in her way. Since medicine was not as advanced as it is today, it was kind of hard to work your way up, especially for a woman. So in that time, there was only a handful of colleges, and there was only an even smaller number that had those with medical schools. So then when she started to gain her experience in medicine, it was due to the two Southern physicians that she lived with before she was able to get into college. So then when she returned, she was hoping that some of her Quaker friends would be able to get her into college. She was denied acceptance to every college that she applied for except for one, which was the Geneva College of New York. But this was supposed to be a practical joke done by the admissions office and the professors there. When she finally got in, she faced a lot of alienation by her professors and classmates in her classes. Although she was so alienated and she felt out of place, she was able to graduate at the top of her class. Through her hard work and perseverance, she was able to move into a Parisian maternity hospital for her postgraduate work, and she was labeled as a superb obstetrician by the doctors there. And then later she would lose sight in one of her eyes when she treated a baby with a bacterial infection, and then this would cause her to go blind in that eye and she wouldn't be able to become a surgeon. When she moved back to the U.S., she opened up her own practice in New York. She would have little to no patients, and then she would then move into opening a dispensary for the majority of the urban poor in Manhattan. Then it moved into being a infirmary for women and children, and she worked with her younger sister, who actually ended up being the third woman in the U.S. to get her medical degree. But when she visited London throughout her medical career, she was able to establish the London School for Women in the 1870s, and then she would become a gynecology professor there. Blackwell made steps forward in the medical place, but she was also interested in other things, like the movements that had to do with the movements that were going on during this time. And she highlighted with her influences on social reform, women's rights, family planning, and sexual purity. However, after she declined from a fall and several paralytic strokes throughout her life, she eventually passed, leaving her legacy for women to follow behind her. Now that you know a little about her life, I will close with a quote by Elizabeth. For what is done by learning by one class of women, by virtue of what remained, this is the property of all women. Elizabeth made major steps forward by being the first female doctor, and through her efforts she represented women and inequality in everything she did. I hope through this you can see and appreciate her work, obstacles, and achievements. Thank you all for listening and enjoying.